You know that feeling. You want to understand something really important, something shaping our world, but you're just hit with this wall of information.
Yeah, it's overwhelming.
Exactly. You want to get to the core of it, but without, getting totally lost.
Hmm.
Well, that's what we're aiming for today. We're driving deep into Yuval Noah Harari's 21 Lessons for the 21st Century using the material you sent over.
And this book, it really goes for the big issues, doesn't it? The stuff that, frankly, keeps a lot of us awake.
Like what specifically?
Well, you've got the real dangers of nuclear war. Ecological collapse is huge right now, and just the constant disruption from technology.
Right.
Plus things like fake news, terrorism, and that big question, what should we even be teaching our kids?
And it takes a really global view. It's not just focused on one place.
Absolutely. It looks at the major forces hitting societies all over the planet.
Right.
It's less a history book, more. Well, a set of lessons, like the title says, designed to make us think about the big conversations.
And didn't a lot of these ideas actually start from questions people asked Harari?
That's right. Yeah, readers, journalists, colleagues.
Yeah.
So it feels very connected to, now. And it covers so much tech, politics, religion, even art, trying to find the deeper meaning in current events.
Okay, let's jump in then. One of the first big things is technology, right? And how it's messing with, well, everything, especially politics. This feeling of disorientation it talks about.
Yeah, that sense that things are changing too fast. The liberal political system, the one that mostly grew up during the Industrial Revolution, individual rights, democracy, free markets, it's really, really struggling to cope with the speed of infotech and biotech. Our whole way of doing politics was built for factories, not AI and gene editing.
It's a fundamental mismatch.
Totally. The design is just off for this pace of change.
And it's not like our politicians or even most voters or tech gurus, are they? It's tough to regulate something you barely understand.
Exactly. The book makes that great point about the internet, huge world changer. Right? But driven by engineers, not governments. I mean, Harari asks, did you ever vote about the internet?
No. Good point.
And that gap, that feeling that massive changes are happening to us, not by us through democracy, Harari thinks that's feeding the disillusionment in the West.
People feel bypassed.
Kind of.
Yeah.
You sense the future is rushing past, and you didn't really get a say.
It contrasts that with, 1930s propaganda. Even in terrible times, people were told they were the future. The worker, the farmer.
Exactly. Heroic figures building tomorrow. But now, the book suggests these populist revolts might be different, not just against exploitation.
But against irrelevance.
Yeah, a revolt against an elite that maybe doesn't even need the masses anymore because of automation. And that's psychologically way harder to fight. Irrelevance cuts deeper than exploitation, maybe?
So the liberal story, as Harari calls it, is in trouble. But it's faced crises before, right?
Oh, yeah. Big ones. Like after World War I, when empire building seemed to totally crush liberal ideals.
But it bounced back.
It did. It offered that vision of a new world order, freedom, peace, international cooperation. Learn from the disaster, basically.
Then there's this idea about oligarchic models, governments that sort of manufacture crises.
Right. Using nationalism or religion as a cover to keep power while things are maybe really unequal, like Russia presenting as a democracy, but,
Highly unequal, strong nationalist vibe.
Exactly. They create instability or enemies to rally people and distract from the real issues.
And the interesting thing is, even people who seem to admire those regimes, would they actually want to live there?
Probably not, right?
Yeah.
Think about some Western groups admiring Putin. Would their voters really want that level of corruption, that lack of rule of law?
Yeah.
It's revealing.
So this current crisis for liberalism, maybe it's serious, but not fatal. Because there isn't really a clear global alternative waiting.
That's the argument. People are frustrated, angry even, but where do you turn? Is there another big story that everyone can buy into globally? Maybe not right now.
So the risk is people just retreat into nationalism, local stuff.
Could be. Give up on the global idea. Focus on nationalist or religious stories that feel closer, more emotional. But, 20th century nationalism didn't really have a global plan, did it? It was more about getting your own nation state.
And whatever story does try to win people over, it has to deal with tech, right? Infotech and biotech.
Absolutely. That's the test. Liberalism, nationalism, whatever comes next, it needs a narrative that makes sense of AI, big data, bioengineering. That's what shapes 2050.
Okay, let's dig into those revolutions. AI isn't just faster computers, is it?
Not at all. It's deeply linked to breakthroughs in biology, in understanding how we work. The more we learn about emotions, decisions, the better AI gets at, well, analyzing and predicting us.
Hacking humans, the book uses that phrase. Neuroscience, behavioral economics, showing our choices aren't free will, but super fast brain calculation.
Yeah, pattern recognition mostly. Our intuition is basically biochemical algorithms honed by evolution.
And AI can potentially do that better because our algorithms aren't perfect.
Exactly. AI can spot patterns, assess emotions, maybe even better than us in some cases, because it's learning the underlying biochemical code, so to speak.
The medicine example is powerful. An AI connected to all the latest data, billions of cases.
Huge advantage, right? Connectivity, instant updates. Even brilliant human doctors can't match that scale.
But doesn't that risk losing individuality,
Yeah.
being treated by a giant system?
It's a concern, but the book flips it. What if you could run multiple AI algorithms? Get like 100-second opinions instantly, compare their track records.
Interesting. Okay, so this leads straight to the future of work. This idea of a useless class. It's pretty unsettling.
It is. Even if new jobs appear, the analogy to horses being replaced by machines in the 19th century is stark.
Because automation keeps improving, so even retraining might not be a long-term fix.
Right. Machine learning, robotics, they don't stand still.
Yeah.
The job you retrain for today might be automated in 10 years. Creates huge volatility.
And makes things like unions harder, with more gig work, freelance stuff.
Definitely. Less stability, less collective bargaining power.
But the book stresses this isn't just about technology, right? Politics matters. Culture matters.
Hugely. Self-driving cars might be safer, cheaper,
Yeah.
but societies might take ages to fully adopt them, to sort out the laws, the ethics. It's not automatic.
And the global impact. If cheap labor becomes less important because of AI and 3D printers, what happens to developing countries?
Big question. Could massively widen the gap between the rich who own the tech and the poor, maybe living on universal basic income.
So even if everyone has basic needs met, the competition shifts to luxury stuff the unemployed can't afford. A very divided society.
Potentially, yeah. And this tech shift might change who or what holds authority. It used to be God, then human reason via liberalism. Next up, algorithms.
Undermining individual freedom,
That's the worry. If our feelings aren't free will, but biochemical calculations.
which liberalism told us to follow.
Right. And that was good advice compared to just following dogma. But what if AI algorithms can analyze those biochemical signals better than our conscious selves?
So the authority shifts from us to the computer because it knows our feelings better than we do.
That's the trajectory. The merging of biotech and infotech leads to algorithms that understand us deeply. Our sense of free will might just dissolve as we interact with systems that know us inside out.
Oh. If AI makes better career choices for us or relationship choices, it changes our whole idea of being human, right? Life as this drama of decision-making.
It forces a rethink. Maybe the universe is just data flows, organisms or algorithms, and our job is to build the ultimate data processing system and merge with it.
Mind-bending stuff. Okay, what about the ethics of these algorithms?
Well, they don't have emotions. They weren't shaped by natural selection's messy compromises. So if you could code ethics precisely, could they be more ethical than humans?
The self-driving car, programmed by Kant and Mill.
Yeah. Philosophical accountability and code. And they don't need to be perfect, just better than humans who cause 1 million road deaths a year.
The fear isn't just AI rebellion, though. It's AI obeying bad orders.
That's maybe the bigger near-term risk. Blind obedience. Think about autonomous weapons. No empathy, no remorse. If programmed with cruel intent, like in Srebrenica, atrocities could be worse.
And we already see algorithms making big decisions, banks hiring.
And when it goes wrong, it's opaque. The algorithm said no. How do you fight that? It can easily lead to hidden discrimination.
Which links back to global inequality. Globalization hasn't lifted all boats.
Not equally, no. The gap's widening. And AI could make it worse, making most human labor economically worthless, politically powerless.
And biotech adds another layer. Biological inequality. Life extension, enhancements only for the rich.
Creating biological castes, potentially. Will we even be one species? Well, different groups need totally different education.
It all comes down to data, doesn't it? Who owns it?
That's the crux. Data is the new oil, the new land. The struggle over controlling data flow will shape humanity's future, maybe even whether we split into different types.
If we merge with tech, disconnecting might become impossible, affecting insurance, jobs, healthcare.
And corporations, governments get huge power through biometric data, knowing us, manipulating us, deciding for us, even engineering life.
So the question is, who owns the data about us? Our DNA, brains, lives.
Harari calls it the most important political question of our time. Getting it wrong could break our systems. It's part of why people are losing faith in the old liberal story now.
Are there solutions? Networked algorithms? Collective ownership?
Maybe. The book mentions possibilities. It talks about Zuckerberg's vision for Facebook, the need for big players to commit to the common good, not just profit.
Okay, shifting again, this clash of civilizations idea. The book says the analogy to biology is wrong.
Fundamentally flawed, yeah. Human groups aren't like animal species. Our identities aren't fixed by genetics.
Like Germany having 6 different political systems in a century.
Exactly. Cultures change, systems change. Defining European civilization just by recent values like democracy ignores centuries of conflict and non-democratic rule.
And traditions, even religious ones, get reinterpreted all the time, right? They aren't set in stone.
Definitely. Think about changing practices in synagogues, or how ISIS had a very modern take on Islam, using modern tech and ideas. Conflict can even create weird connections, like the US and USSR during the Cold War intensely focused on each other.
The medieval Olympics metaphor is interesting. We argue, but we all show up to the same games.
Right. Despite national pride, there's this huge underlying agreement on the rules, the framework. Practically speaking, building states, economies, tech, we're mostly in the same civilization, defined by shared challenges as much as shared values.
Let's talk existential threats. Nuclear war, the fear of it, shaped the post-WWII world.
Hugely. That Daisy ad symbolized it. The focus was preventing global war, even if today we argue more about economics or immigration like with Brexit.
And building that system was hard. Just abandoning it for nationalism is risky.
Irresponsible, the book argues, in a nuclear age. And then there's climate change. It's real, it's us, and no nation can fix it alone.
But emissions are still going up globally, despite the urgency.
Alarmingly, yes. Which makes purely nationalist solutions look inadequate. Green policies in one country are great, but it needs global coordination.
Any hope from technology here? Clean meat.
Mentioned as a possibility, yeah. Tech breakthroughs could help.
But the bottom line is, nationalism can't just wish these global threats away. Nuclear war, climate change, tech disruption, they force cooperation.
They demand it.
Yeah.
These problems transcend borders. You need some common identity, some shared effort, which nationalism struggles with.
Where does traditional religion fit? Can it unite us?
The book questions that. Religions often focus on interpretation, not technical solutions for modern problems like AI ethics or carbon capture.
So religious leaders might use science, but wrap it in religious language.
Often, yes. There isn't really a distinct Muslim economics or Christian physics offering up-to-date alternatives. Plus, religion has downsides, historical issues like misogyny dividing people, sometimes over small things.
Like state Shinto in Japan using tradition to bolster modern nationalism.
Yeah, a common pattern. Using Orthodoxy, Catholicism, Islam, Judaism to reinforce national identity. But then Harari contrasts this with secular ethics.
As a positive view, based on evidence observation.
Right. Not anti-religious necessarily, but grounded in seeking truth through evidence and reason, not just faith. It sees morality as a shared human thing, hence the overlap in values across cultures.
The core is truth and compassion, constant questioning.
Exactly. But it can be demanding. It doesn't always offer easy answers or inspiring slogans, especially in emergencies.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can become dogmatic, too.
Immigration's such a tough issue. The book lays out both sides, pro and anti.
Yeah, the economic arguments, cultural enrichment versus immigrant intolerance, the refugee obligation, all the familiar points.
In that debate in Europe, do immigrants need to adopt national values? What are those values even?
It's complex. The analogy of the eucalyptus tree in France, where does the second generation belong? It highlights the difficulty of judging assimilation. Who's responsible for what?
The warm land versus coldia idea is useful, distinguishing cultural differences from racism.
Yes, saying different cultures have different communication styles that might clash at work.
Yeah.
That's culturism, maybe sometimes valid, not necessarily racism, which is about biological bigotry.
But what if those cultural differences do lead to gaps in employment or whatever? What's the ethical response? Assimilation, affirmative action.
Big questions, no easy answers, and potential for resentment either way. Biological racism is discredited, but cultural differences. They're real and still matter a lot in how groups relate.
Okay, terrorism. The book calls terrorists masters of mind control, using violence to provoke overreaction.
Exactly, theatrical violence. The goal isn't usually mass casualties, but maximum fear and disruption, getting the state to overreact. And often, the overreaction causes more harm.
Statistically, cars and pollution kill far more people in the West. Why the outsized fear of terrorism?
It's because modern states built their legitimacy on stopping political violence. So even small terror attacks feel like an existential threat to the state's authority in a way car crashes don't.
So the state stages this theater of security and plays into the terrorists' hands.
Often, yeah, amplifies their message. Success or failure depends on our reaction. Do we freak out or stay balanced?
But WMDs would change the game completely.
Absolutely, that's the nightmare scenario, if terrorists got hold of those.
Moving to war more broadly, recent decades were relatively peaceful, but things feel tense now.
Deteriorating, yeah.
Yeah.
More warmongering, military spending, fear of a WWI-style spark from a regional incident.
But do major powers even know how to win big wars anymore?
Good question. The U.S. didn't really win against the USSR militarily. China rose economically. Conquest seems less effective now.
Putin's Russia lacks a universal ideology like communism to unite allies.
Right. So conquest is harder than, say, disinformation. Plus, assets are intangible now. Data, IP. Harder to conquer, easier to destroy. And nukes and cyber warfare make it incredibly risky.
So maybe the lack of recent successful wars is actually a deterrent.
Could be. Even nationalist leaders might pause if they don't see a clear path to victory. Then the book talks about human egoism, group superiority.
Every group thinks it's special. Hindu myths, Jewish chosenness.
It's everywhere. And a critique of monotheism did insisting on one true God sometimes fuel intolerance historically, compared to polytheism.
Interesting point. And Jewish contributions to science came largely after people left strict observance.
Mostly, yeah.
Yeah.
Individuals operating outside the traditional religious framework. Suggests religious law isn't fundamentally different from secular law in just maintaining order. Using God's name for politics is often problematic.
Okay, the knowledge illusion. We know less than we think.
Way less. We live in this sea of information, impossible to process it all. The liberal ideal was the rational individual, but we mostly rely on collective knowledge, groupthink.
And complexity makes it worse. We have strong opinions on things we barely understand.
Totally. Reinforced by echo chambers online.
Yeah.
Just throwing more facts rarely changes minds because group belonging trumps individual reason, even for scientists sometimes.
Is belief in individual rationality itself liberal groupthink?
Huh, maybe. And this isn't just average folks. Leaders are busy, insulated by power. The black hole of power truth struggles to reach the top. Plus, cause and effect are so tangled globally. How do you act morally when you can't know all the consequences?
We talk about intentions, but ignorance can be deadly. We have an obligation to try to know.
A moral imperative, the book argues. Ignorance fueled huge historical crimes. But sincere effort is hard without hindsight. Think of the Tasmanians. People didn't even know they existed while they were being wiped out.
And fiction. It's key to cooperation. National myths, ideologies.
Incredibly powerful tools. Goebbels knew it. Humans maybe prioritize power over truth. Understanding is a tool to control. Fake news is bad, but real suffering happens because people believe fictions.
We cooperate based on fiction, so storytellers are as important as engineers.
Fundamentally, yes. Poets, artists, they shape the shared reality. The Matrix metaphor is authenticity, even real. Escaping one fiction often means entering another. Our identity is an illusion.
But pain, love, those feel real, even in the Matrix.
They're real experiences, yes. But the mind itself is shaped by history, biology, manipulation. Maybe Huxley's Brave New World engineered contentment suppressing deep experience is more relevant than robot rebellions.
So unprecedented change, old stories crumbling. How do we prepare ourselves, our kids?
Yeah, what education even matters by 2050? So much could be irrelevant.
The focus needs to be skills. The 4 C's. Critical thinking, communication.
Collaboration, creativity,
Yeah.
and resilience. The ability to deal with change, reinvent yourself, that's key. Grand stories used to give meaning, right? Communism, etc. Being part of something bigger.
But nationalism, religion, maybe less universal now.
Harder to scale globally. And there's that deep human need to leave a mark, extend the story beyond death, soul, legacy.
Reincarnation lacks proof. Romantic love gives meaning, but maybe temporarily.
It can feel infinite, yeah. Rituals help too, flags, ceremonies, creating shared reality through symbols. Hocus pocus, X is Y.
And sacrifice is powerful. Martyrs solidify belief.
Hugely. Reenacting stories, like the Shiite commemoration of Hussein. Sacrifice can even substitute for other duties within the story. Humans are good at holding contradictory beliefs, too.
Liberalism's story is about the individual creating themselves, feeling, thinking, inventing. Liberty is supreme.
That's the narrative. But constructing that perfect online self can become mistaken for reality.
Buddhism offers a total contrast. No cosmic meaning, no stable self, just ephemeral feelings causing suffering.
A radical alternative. But even Buddhist kingdoms went to war. Beliefs get mixed with other things.
Like militarism in 1930s Japan using Buddhist ideas.
Exactly. Shows philosophies aren't immune to being twisted. But even if the big stories are fictions, no need for despair. Reality is still there.
The question isn't what's the meaning of life, but how to stop suffering.
That's the pragmatic shift. Observing suffering helps see what's real in the stories. The hero has to suffer. The answer isn't a story, it's observation.
So after all that skepticism about big stories, how can Harari remain optimistic? He mentions meditation.
Yeah, but carefully. He hesitates to push personal practices, acknowledges everyone's different, but he shares his experience with Vipassana meditation.
Said to be the Buddhist technique.
That's the tradition.
Yeah.
But the key point he makes is you don't need to buy the Buddhist story to do it. It's practical.
Just observing your own mind and body directly, putting doctrines aside.
Exactly. Direct observation. He notes scientists study meditators' brains, which is interesting, but
It's indirect, like looking at a microscope instead of through it.
precisely, you miss the direct experience. Meditation is a tool for looking at the mind from the inside. You have to try it to really get it.
So wrapping up this deep dive, the 21st century is just incredibly complex, changing incredibly fast.
No doubt. We've touched on tech disruption, shifting ideologies, the huge challenges of inequality and data control, how conflict is changing, and just how powerful stories are in shaping everything.
The core message seems to be the need to engage with all this thoughtfully, critically.
Definitely. Tech is rewriting the rules. Ideologies are under stress. Data control is maybe the central power struggle. Our ideas about security, religion, everything, they're all being tested.
It really makes you pause and think about how you navigate all this, how you prepare for such an uncertain future.
It does. And maybe that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. If fiction is so powerful and direct experience is so crucial for seeing reality, how can you personally cultivate a clearer, more grounded understanding of this complex world and, your own place in it?